Hi there friends, so I hope everyone is staying healthy and safe. My weekend project from 2 weeks ago was Wuuthrad from The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, and I'm really excited that I finally made this because it's like one of my favorite axes ever and I love it, and I love the design of it. It's really fun. This was supposed to be just a weekend project but ended up taking like a week because I broke the little collet thing that on my Dremel and I had to wait for a new one to come in. So anyway, it took a lot longer than I had planned. Let's just go ahead and hop into the video of me making this. The first thing that I did was trace Wuuthrad by bringing a photo up on a monitor, and I kind of eyeballed how big it should be. After tracing it out, I cut the pattern and then I plopped that onto some floor mat foam. I traced it twice and cut it out. When I sliced the axe blades, I sliced them at a 45-degree angle so that the blade would already have a nice slope to work with when I am sanding it. That way the blade would look really nice and sharp. After cutting them out, I marked a line down the middle. This will be the cut to form a channel for the support rod I'll be putting in. I'm using a metal rod, so it won't be con safe, but other than that, all I really had on me was a PVC pipe, which was too thick to go into the head of the axe, so it's just gonna be a wall hanging. To cut out the channel, I hold my blade at an angle and I cut along the line at both sides. This creates a V. And then from there, I just lift up the foam that I cut to expose a channel. Wow. Next, I tape up one half of the axe head and start doodling down the details. I do this in pencil and then I go over it in Sharpie. These pieces will all be cut out of 6mm foam. I'm only doing half of the axe because I'll be mirroring these patterns for the other sides, so this way I don't have to do double the work. Next, I peel up the pattern tape and I put it onto some patterning paper. After I cut out the patterns, I start foaming them. These long rectangle pieces are made out of 2mm foam, as I noticed they're kind of short compared to the rest of the details. And this is also just how I'm interpreting it. There are a million ways to make this axe. I just did it this way. I can do whatever I want, and you can do whatever you want with your axe. Trying to trace patterns on a 2mm foam is a huge pain because it's just like, it's so thin. So I took out my ruler to make the lines and then I cut them out. I put the rest of the pieces onto 6mm foam, traced them, and cut them out. I had to cut 4 of every single piece for the front of the axe and the back, and for each of the sides. And it was just a lot of cutting of very tiny details. It was kind of a pain. For the face, I again just doodled on a pattern. All the pieces in black will be cut out of 6mm foam, and they're all going to be separate pieces too. So the eyes, the ears, the eyebrows, his little mouth, all that's going to be separate cuts of 6mm foam. Next, I cut out the face pattern and I put it on the head of the axe just to kind of see how it'll look, and I like it. So again, back to the 6mm foam and I cut it all out. Except for the eyeballs, I ended up making those all out of foam clay since they're so tiny. Look at the little eyeballs, oh my goodness. To wrap the handle, I took a length of 6mm foam and I wrapped it around the handle. To figure out how thick I needed to make the cut, I put that on a 6mm foam and I cut it out. So back to the little details, I sand the edges of all the little pieces to shape them. This took a really long time, especially with my Dremel was like slowly breaking down, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to replace this piece, aren't I? And then to melt off any of the fuzzies, I heated up the foam with my heat gun. Any small pieces I put into this tape thing to act as a barrier so that the pieces wouldn't fly everywhere. Oh, look at that spinny boy. Next, I pinned all the details onto the axe head and I traced them so I knew exactly where the piece would go. I used rubber cement to tack everything down because as much as I love hot glue, yes, hot glue, I knew there was no way to do this neatly, so rubber cement it is. I'd actually use barge if I had any, but again, stay-at-home project, and I really don't like barge, but I mean, I would have used it. After that, I go ahead and further expand the channel a tad bit, and I sanded the edges of the axe. I noticed the collet was really needing to be replaced at this point, so I stopped working on that and I started gluing the foam cover onto the support rod. Oh, also by this point I had glued both of the sides of the axes together, sandwiching the rod in between them. So my order of new collets came in a few days later. Very exciting. I know, I'm very excited here. But before sanding the rest of the axe, I molded the bottom oval ball thing out of some foam clay. So I added a few more details onto the bottom of the axe and started sanding the seam where I glued the cover on, as well as the rest of the axe head, which had some foam clay on it to cover up any few gaps that I had and some mistakes. After sanding, I looked through my foam dowels and I found a 10mm rounded dowel to wrap the top of the handle just to have those cool little details that it has. And I used 2 smaller dowels to wrap above and below the thicker dowel. You can either buy dowels. I like to make them. You just cut foam at a 45-degree angle on both sides so that you have a triangle, basically. And then you can sand it down if you want a round dowel, so I mean, that works. Which I actually did here. I ended up sanding it down. After everything got sanded and heated up one more time to melt the fuzzies, it all got a few coats of gray Plasti Dip. I say this in every video, please be sure to wear a respirator when heating up foam or using any aerosol spray type things or primer. I am doing this in my craft room, which has 2 giant windows which are open for lots and lots of airflow. Next, I mixed brown, gray, and a bit of black together to get a dark gray-brown shade, and I painted all of that in between the details with just a brush. The handle got a coat of dark brown. I also don't think I covered how I made the details in the handle, so before wrapping it around the metal rod, I used one of my thinner Dremel bits and I just kind of ran it over the foam and it created this wood-like texture. After a coat of hand painting and a coat of silver on the little raised details, I go over it with a dark gray shade to dirty it up. The handle also got a little spray of light brown in some areas just to highlight it and make it look like you've been like holding it, you know? Next, I dry brushed some silver paint onto the very tips of the details and all of the edge of the blades. This is just to make the edges pop and create a meal rattle, a real metal look. The edges of Wuuthrad has this really fun line texturing look to it, so I took one of my rough brushes and I dry brushed some dark gray onto it to make it like kind of streaky, you know, but it definitely added some like really fun details. And that's it. It's all ready to go on my wall because I'm not bringing this to a convention. It's not the best looking thing that I've ever made, but I mean, I'm happy to do it. I don't know. I'm just really glad that I made it because I've always wanted to make it, but yeah, I did rush it. But yeah, I hope you guys kind of like this video. Let me know if you're working on any fun projects during this time of us all like staying indoors and stuff. And thank you so much to my patrons for making this possible, especially Ninja Ruki supplied me with this foam. She was just like, you want this foam? And I was like, yes please, thank you. I'll never turn down foam. And also special thank you to Jim because you get me the 6mm foam and you're amazing and I love all of you so much. So yeah. Adam Hunt, Anime Crush, Blue Panda, Brian, Calvin Lewis, Catastrophe Kitten, David Rosenbaum, Eric, Helvigan, Jim W, Joey, Livy N, Logan Don Carlos, Malice Murden, Ninja Ruki, Nanaman, Randy Vaughn, Robert Gallardo, Sakura, Sakura Kitty Chan, Synergy Craft, Veldemir, and Yeet. Thank you so much guys. Alright, have a super awesome rest of the day guys. Bye!